A point that you left off, but once again, welcome to the program. Glad you are with us this morning. Let's coming to the back page of the Daily Nation. There's that particular piece concerning the judiciary and what Justin Muturi had to say about this, and this is in regards to accounting for funds, or we will block judiciary budget. These are the words of Muturi to CJ Kwame when he rejected claims that Parliament's oversight of state organs borders on harassment and rather threatened to frustrate the judiciary's budget if it does not account for the funds that have been allocated to it. I'll be giving you more details about that in a bit. But just looking at the front page this morning, starting with the story there on the header, teachers interviews start with TSC looking to employ a surplus of 9,000 teachers out of 350,000 that were shortlisted. Only 9,400 and something are going to be employed. Then this just goes to show you the level and the rates of unemployment that we are seeing here in our country, with over 340,000 teachers who are now going to be left unemployed when this exercise will be over and done with. Coming to the main story here on the front page of the Daily Nation, why Uhuru faces a big dilemma, and the whole question again of the race against time as he works towards completing his Big Four agenda projects, a key plank of his legacy. Now pressure is piling from competing quarters to name his successor, both in his Mount Kenya backyard, where he is the de facto kingpin, and of course in the race to State House. Also tied in is the whole Kiamba conversation, with people, critics saying that it was a two-man horse race, and more so pitting the president and the deputy president against each other, with the specific representatives in Kiamba. And finally, horror in the night, 13 killed in a tanker tragedy as they were siphoning fuel moments before it exploded. There are people who have given their own accounts, saying that the next morning, that is Sunday morning, that is when they were waking up to seeing body parts and people just lying along the road. Those are the ones that died from that particular explosion. And finally, Kagongo death, the unanswered question. This particular story has elicited quite the conversation over the weekend. So many conspiracy theories have come up as just trying to explain how she wound up dead in her parents' home. But coming to the front page of the People Daily, Jubilee Kiamba fallout intensifies, again pitting President Kenyatta and Deputy President against each other in this particular poll that happened. Also looking at the side here is that 700,000 EU jabs to boost COVID-19 war in Kenya, and we are expecting this consignment of over 700,000 by this weekend. The specific countries that are donating this particular vaccines are yet to be named, but we'll be giving you some of the countries that have been rumored, quote unquote, to be the ones that are going to be supplying us with this particular vaccines. And the main story here is still in regards to the explosion that happened on Saturday. Village loses 13 in a tanker tragedy, and it has emerged that all this, that people that lost their lives, they knew each other. This is the words of one man who survived and is still recuperating at the Yala Sub-County Hospital, one Mr. James Omolo. These are just some of the stories that have found their way on the front page of the Daily Nation as well as the People Daily. But before we get to those details, we want to take a very quick break. But remember, you can always interact with us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 ever remains to be the official station handle. Our individual handles are at Victor Oloo, at Dorina Range, at Ray Manyara, and at Jain Wambui. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right.
There we are.
And welcome back. We are still continuing the discussion here and taking a look at what's happening on the local dailies. Still on politics, Kiambaa by-election must worry Raila more than Ruto. That is what is highlighted here. Now, Raila's worst nightmare resides in the possibility that his NASACO principals could cast away their scruples and team up with Deputy President William Ruto. Now, last week's Kiambaa by-election may very well be the call of a bugle and tolling of political bells ahead of August next year's polls. And now Kiambaa and Juja before it are an inoculation against what is coming next year. So, according to the newspaper here, it's all about Raila to be more worried than President Kenyatta, as it is. All right, still on more politics. Jubilee mulls over a string of mini polls losses. The MPs want Murathe and Tuju, who were absent in the by-election campaigns, held responsible for the party wars. Disgruntled Kieleweke MPs have now trained their guns on party officials following loss in the Kiambaa parliamentary by-election. The infighting within President Uhuru Kenyatta's team has been linked to the string of losses in recent by-elections, as everyone claims to be in charge, more so the secretariat, clashing with the parliamentary leadership. So MPs are now accusing the two, as well as the Kiambu Governor James Nyoro, of delivering disappointing results in Juja and taking over the campaigns led by National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya, Murang'a County MP Sabina Chege, Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi, Kieni MP Kanini Kega, and Nyeri Town's Ngunjiri Wambogo. So the MPs are accusing those in the secretariat of their losses in Kiambaa by-election. Still, ruling party is structurally dead. That is according to Deputy President William Ruto's allies, who have now declared so. And the former National Assembly Majority Leader Eden Duale has declared Jubilee as structurally dead, and that UDA will be the vehicle of choice in the coming general elections. Duale, however, said that the recently concluded Kiambaa by-election between the United Democratic Alliance, that is where Juguna Wanjiku won, and Jubilee's Kariri Njama was just a friendly fire because UDA was a Jubilee affiliate party. So he said there is nothing to celebrate about. Remember, UDA's candidate just won with a difference of 510 votes. So according to Duale, that was just but a friendly fire and there's nothing to debate about. All right, there's that part of inside Raila's new plan to grab the hustler agenda from Ruto. Okay. Since last week, there have been that debate, Jain.
Yes.
That Deputy President William Ruto now said that ODM leader Raila Odinga was now leaning towards the hustle narrative.
Yeah.
And Raila says that it's not the whole idea of grabbing the hustler narrative per se, but just concentrating on the economy. And Raila now says that his main agenda is to revive the industries and manufacturing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did see the DP go onto Twitter, put out a few posts saying, you're welcome to join the narrative. And now, remember when we were just having that conversation, we were like, you wait and see how this whole situation will somersault around, and it will be a whole other conversation. And that is exactly what we are seeing now with DP accusing Raila of trying to sabotage the hustler narrative. Last week, he was, you know, just open arms welcoming him to the hustler narrative. And now here we are, it's a whole different conversation.
Exactly.
And there's a piece here where it has been captioned where DP saying, prepare for tough battle as he warns his rivals. And this has been evident with what we have seen over the weekend with both what Raila Odinga had to say and also DP on the other hand. But now the DP, he says ongoing coalition building efforts will not stop him from ascending to the presidency. And this is, before we even get to that particular story, there's this other piece here on page 4 that just goes on to look at the dilemma that His Excellency President Kenyatta is facing, has been termed as a catch-22 situation. Politically speaking, you know, They go on to say that he is racing against time to complete his Big Four agenda projects, which will be the biggest legacy that he will be leaving post his term. And on the other hand, he still has the commitment that he made to Kenyans to unite all Kenyans beyond ethnic boundaries with the 2018 handshake. Then there is the Big Four agenda therein. And now there's the whole division that he is facing with the Deputy President William Ruto. And also there are those observers who are pointing out saying that he could also be staring at a looming fallout in Jubilee as his men go for each other's necks and trade blame for his misfortune. And this is evident with what we have seen between Raila Odinga and William Ruto, just trading blame for the misfortunes that have happened during this second term that President Kenyatta was president. But also there are those that have pointed out that actually comparing President Uhuru Kenyatta to President Uhuru Kenyatta's second term to the second term of the former President Mwai Kibaki. And here they go on to point out that in the event that he won a second term, he would almost immediately plunge into a lame, dark phase, as his predecessor Mwai Kibaki, who either chose to play no active role in politics or was unable to control the politics around his succession. And critics are still saying that this is sort of replaying itself with what Mwai Kibaki went through, and could be a similar situation to what His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta could be going through, and especially now with about a year to go to the next general elections. So that is that in regards to, President Uhuru Kenyatta's succession politics. But now coming to this other particular story where the DP has warned his critics and other rivals, telling them to prepare for a tough battle. He is saying that the ongoing coalition buildings are not going to stop him from ascending to the presidency. Again, pointing out that Raila Odinga is out to sabotage his hustler narrative, the bottom-up economic model, saying that he doesn't have the good of the people at heart. He's just looking for a political strategy in order to be able to bag the presidential seat come 2022. That in a nutshell is what this particular story has to say. And of course, he went on to just show the people that he is out to support them, and especially given the win that he had in Kiambaa this past week. Victor.
All right. And just in our next debate, we will be asking legislator, that is MP Godfrey Osotsi. There's a story here, and we discussed it last week, of that shot by the CJ over Parliament, over the summons. Now, House Speaker Justin Muturi now asks Judiciary to respect MPs' summonses. And the standoff between MPs and Chief Justice Martha Koome escalated yesterday after National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi warned the House may consider withholding funding for the judiciary. And you see now Parliament is the final step. So if they don't ratify, if they don't approve, then the judiciary will be starved. And we can say that the past wars between the executive and the judiciary in the last regime of David Maraga's regime, and now here it's now going from the legislature and the judiciary. How it's going to pan out, we'll ask MP Godfrey Osotsi on what he thinks on that. Now, Muturi said that the judiciary has no option but to appear before parliamentary committees for scrutiny, as well as to account for public resources in its disposal. Now, Martha Koome last week froze further appearance by judicial officers before both the Senate and National Assembly, citing multiple and overlapping summonses by the two houses. And so now, the House Speaker says, be warned, we'll starve you of funding. All right. Now, Ruto, in bid to chip away at Raila's cost support, Raila's worst nightmare resides in the possibility that his NASA co-principals could shrug off their complaints and team up with Ruto. So Ruto arrived at the coast, a stronghold of Raila, a day after registering a victory in Uhuru's political turf of central Kenya, when United Democratic Alliance John Wanjiku beat Karidi Njama of Jubilee, and he's been camping there for the last 2 days. So, yeah, there you have it. What's going to happen moving forward to next year's election will be quite interesting.
Absolutely. Now, just to touch on this particular story, it has been on all the dailies, I do believe. It has also been part of what we had for you in our news this morning, but it is in regards to the fire that, rather the explosion of the tanker that happened this past Saturday, a night of horror as 13 die in tanker fire and 31 others left nursing, fighting for their lives. But now, the other story here is tragedy after tragedy, and why don't Kenyans ever learn? Now, those that survived from this ordeal are now just recounting and giving their own accounts of what happened before that tanker explosion. And there's actually one that I've managed to just get a quick overview of what he had to say. When they had the explosion at around 9:30 p.m., they rushed to the scene where the tanker had collided with a milk truck as well, head-on collision. So at first it was a rescue mission to save both the drivers. But then again, after the drivers were both pulled out, then now the crowd started getting bigger. And the driver of the tanker was actually warning the people and trying to push them away from just siphoning this fuel, but the people did not want to hear this. They went from one compartment to the other, just trying to siphon as much fuel as they can.
Actually, the story has it, one of the witnesses said that the fire was sparked by one gentleman who tried to unplug the battery, because they said that, you know, the tanker battery, you know, it's slightly bigger. And they are saying that, you know, it's quite valuable, it is quite expensive. So when somebody was going to unplug the battery, then it sparked fire.
It sparked fire.
Right.
And this is a risk that you don't even, that goes without warning. Fuel is highly flammable. And I mean, the tanker is literally rated highly flammable. But people, how many times have we had such tragedies before where we see tankers have overturned, people rushed to the scene to siphon fuel? There's actually one who was talking of how he had a 20-liter jerry can, and he was a few minutes away from the tanker when he had the explosion, and he had to drop it because all his clothes were drenched in petrol.
The sad part was that lady who died with her child.
Yes, women and children are also involved in this.
You leave your house in the dead of the night at 11 midnight, rush there with your child tied on your back, and then all of them disappeared and died beyond recognition. So we just have to tell you people, there's nothing we gain out of such kind of actions. It's just a whole community now lost 13 people. And as you said, Jen, they know each other.
And that's actually an account of one of the survivors at the hospital saying that almost all the 13 that perished at the scene knew each other. So it was a question of kuja twende tukachote mafuta twende, you know, that is what they were saying. And this particular piece goes on to highlight the previous other, 3 other previous explosions that happened here in our country. On the 31st of January 2009, where an oil tanker exploded at Sachangwan area in Nakuru, along the Nakuru-Eldoret highway, killing 130 people. Then there was also the September 12th, 2011 incident. About 120 people were burnt to death as they tried to siphon oil. And there's also the one that happened on the 17th of August in 2014, where 6 people died while 9 others sustained serious burns after a petrol tanker they were siphoning fuel from caught fire. You know, I understand times are tough and we are willing to do anything to just get an extra coin to provide food for your children, a meal at least at the end of the day. But sometimes, should the risk outweigh the benefit of what you stand to gain? You know?
I mean, it's so simple. What we can always tell people, guys, when there is an accident of such nature, avoid as much as you can. Avoid. It's like some people would say it's a timing bomb. It's like a grenade.
It's a ticking bomb, Bwana.
The pin is already plugged, so the only thing is now remaining for it to explode. So avoid as much as you can. Avoid. It's never that good because 13 people are now dead. But so far, well, we still wish the affected families grace during this trying moment. But again, let's learn from the past. 130 people, that still remains a yardstick, such a one that is still, etched in our hearts and our minds as journalists who cover that story and, the families who died. When you go along that such a one area, there is a whole, that whole area has been built as a reminder of what happened. So, guys, let's try and be more careful next time. All right. Okay, so let me just flip pages again now and let's talk about what's happening on the front page of the Star newspaper. Jubilee Party chiefs blame Uhuru men for Kiambaa fiasco. High-ranking party bosses claim bureaucrats from office of the president hijacked campaign strategy and cash. And now they are still saying that the defeat has sparked off fierce accusation in the ruling party. So that is the story making splash here on the Star newspaper. And again, still on the front line, Raila, how I plan to revive industries if elected president. That is also captured in the Standard there and still continues in the Star newspaper. Again now, will starve you of cash. Muturi wants judiciary. Again, also captured here on the Star newspaper. We have told you about that, that battle now still looming between the legislature and the judiciary. How it's going to pan out, whether they'll come to a truce is just a matter of wait and see as well. And man accused of defiling, killing girls to be charged. A suspected serial killer linked to the defilement and murder of 5 girls at Moise Bridge in Gishu County will today be presented before a court in Eldoret to face murder charges. Evans Juma Wanjala underwent an identification parade at the weekend. So that story is also going to, to form part of the debate for the better part of this week and probably coming days, because the disappearances, something that has been happening for quite some time, and now it's high time that it came to an end. Okay, still on the splash of the Star newspaper, of course, 13 people killed in CF fuel tanker explosion there. Night of horror where 13 people lost their lives. Moving quickly, Jirongo's forgery charges quashed after 24 years. Justice George Odunga had previously stopped his prosecution, and former Lugari MP Cyrus Jirongo got a reprieve on Friday after the Supreme Court stopped his prosecution over 50 million shillings fraud case that dates back 24 years ago. Question is, Jen, 24 years ago, 50 million shillings, 24 years ago. All right, that's a lot of money. Okay.
The coin had a higher value then.
Yeah, that was a lot of money then. Let's leave it at that. Judges dismissed discrimination against case after 25-year battle again. The Supreme Court has ended a 25-year-old legal battle between taxi operators and the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport after judges dismissed an appeal by the drivers. The wheel of justice, sometimes they say, is very, very, very slow. 5 years later, they make a judgment, waiting for that judgment. And boom, you lose a case. So that is justice.
This goes the reforms in the judiciary that we need when it comes to the time that some of these cases take in the court.
Yeah, to clear the backlog of cases.
Yes, Bwana.
Yeah. Like for example, with these 2 cases here, one 24 years later, another one 25 years later. Being,
Hiyo mtoto amezaliwa na akakuwa young adult.
Already done with campus.
Man.
Yes. Class 1 to Form 4 to campus, done, and you're still in court looking for justice. Perhaps some of the judges who are handling those cases had retired, Anyway, it's all right. So that is it. Only 2%, Jain, fully vaccinated as COVID positivity rate drops to 8.8%. Some 582,391 Kenyans have already received their second dose. Data from the Ministry of Health Ministry shows this means that the proportion of those fully vaccinated now stands at 2.1%. Ministry data also shows that over 1.3 million people have received their first jab. The government has administered 1,620,465 vaccine jabs since the exercise commenced in March. So it's some good progress there, albeit slow, but having all those people vaccinated, it's good progress on that trajectory. Jen.
Absolutely, and that story also finds its way here on the People Daily, as we expect 700,000 more AstraZeneca doses from the EU to jet into the country by this weekend. The ministry is yet to disclose from which countries are going to be getting this donation, but there are sources who have pointed to Greece, Serbia and Spain as some of the countries that are willing to share their vaccine stock. And as per Cabinet Secretary for Health, that is Mutahi Kagwe, he said that 582,391 people have already taken their second dose, and this still is a very huge shortfall from the target that was initially put in place. That was 1.25 million by the end of June. Now, let's come back to the Daily Nation. Again, that story in regards to the 20-year-old butcher has found its way here, as he's set to be arraigned in court this week. But then there's the puzzle revolving around Kagongo. Many questions as probe starts, and there have been so many inconsistencies that are surrounding the circumstances around the corporal's death, and there are some homicide detectives from the DCI who made their way to the corporal's home in Elgeyo Marakwet to investigate the circumstances of her death. The unanswered questions continue to pop up, and some of the questions that have been highlighted here, and this is something that I've also seen on the social media streets, people just interrogating the scene from the pictures that we have seen. Owing to the many inconsistencies, number one, people are asking, how did the officer make her way into the home that was under police surveillance? Then there's the question, did Ms. Kagongo meet her family on the fateful morning? Then they're also asking, why didn't anyone hear the gunshots from the scene of Ongweno and Jiro's murders and that of Kagongo's alleged suicide? Then there's also the question of which gun or guns were used in the three incidents. Were they the same gun or were they different guns? Did the officer take her own life as is being alleged? And finally, why would she leave hints and clues in every crime scene? These are some of the questions that so many people are just trying to find answers to, revolving around the circumstances of which her body was found, the fact that it was at her parents' home, which was under heavy police surveillance. No gunshots were heard. So there's just so many inconsistencies that people are questioning about the late corporal's death. And is it really suicide? Well, we share the information that we are given, and we just get information from the DCI. So as and when we get more information, we will be sure to share with you. But of course, so many people have had so much to say on the socials about this particular case. Vic.
All right. Okay, so Jubilee Party chiefs blame Uhuru men for Kiambaa fiasco. That still story continues. But one thing that is quite interesting is that some of the MPs now say that it was Jubilee members versus Jubilee members. There was no UDA against Jubilee. So that is how they're playing that card right now. But nonetheless, the narrow but humbling loss in the Kiambaa by-election has sparked off a fierce blame game in Jubilee, with high-ranking party bosses claiming bureaucrats from the office of the president hijacked campaigns and cashed in the campaigns. And now they're calling for some of the heads in that particular secretariat, that is Raphael Tuju and Honorable Murade, to resign, or the president to crack the whip and make Jubilee Party what it used to be. But they say it all begins with them. Now, Raila might plan to revive industries. That is, says technicians, tailors, cooks, hairdressers, artisans have potential to revive the economy. Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga has, for the third time, taken Kenyans into his industrialization agenda, believed to be his economic transformation blueprint if elected president. Raila, who has been giving Kenyans a sneak peek of his manifesto, now said that industrialization remains critical in restoring the country's economy, which he noted has over-depended on imports. So that is that. All right.